Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café, and today I'm super excited because we're having a conversation with Sherry Anshara, and I'm sure we've met from somewhere before. We're trying to figure this out. But anyway, she is a medical intuitive and has quite a story to share. But let me tell you a little bit her background. So she's an international best-selling author, a professional speaker, a former radio host of Conscious Healing, and a contributing writer to national and international publications on the subject of the Anshara method of accelerated healing and abundance and overall wellness. And Sherry Anshara utilizes her experience and expertise as a medical intuitive as the foundation of her groundbreaking work with cellular memory, one of my favorite subjects, which she calls the Anshara method. And so I think I'm going to just leave it. I mean, I already know a little bit about your story. I can hardly wait till you share. Well, welcome. And how did this all come to be? What was your...
Well,
that's going to be my first question, and feel free to go wherever it takes you.
okay, well, how did this get started? This is very interesting. So I'll go back to 3 years old to my first near death. I would see things around people. It was called lights. And I would say things to my mother. And she would say, why do you make this up? I was only 3. And I would explain about, like, some people had like glows around them. And, but I didn't really have the terminology. And some people, like, it wasn't at all. And so that would scare them. But anyway, in 1991, and I was in the corporate world, in the business world, an entrepreneur, and I sort of lived what I call duality. I lived that outside life that I was programmed to live. And then I had this inside life. And this will make you laugh. I don't drink, but my friends back then said if they gave me a glass of wine or two, I would spill the beans because then all this stuff would come out. So I was very careful. I didn't do drugs or drink, and people thought I was being a goody two-shoes. No, it was because I didn't want to, give out information because I was a businesswoman and I was an entrepreneur. So in 1991, I had a car accident assisting. I was helping. I don't help, I assist. A drunk woman in Connecticut. And the car took off and went 40 feet in the air. It was just me in her car. I was moving it because she was drunk and I wasn't. And it was late at night. And there was a setup to get there. And the car went up 40 feet in the air, flipped upside down. And I was in 15 feet of water upside down in the Connecticut River with a smashed head, a broken back, and broken neck, and a brain out of place. And nobody knew my brain was out of place at the time. So to make a long story short, they gave me, and I was living in Michigan at the time, I was there on business. And so the dire predictions that would be about me. And I thought, I'm just not going to do this. I don't know where to go. And in the meantime, I lost everything. I mean, everything, right down to everything. But the thing is things started happening and people started asking me, would you mind if you taught me something or do a session? And I'm looking at them and I said, obviously, you people, I call them you people, are nuts. My life has fallen apart and you're looking for something from me. Surely you jest. This is a joke, right? But what happened is I began to recognize and write about and talk about cellular memory in 1991. And of course, the establishment patted me on the head and said, you'll be okay, take this pill and you'll feel better. But because of the transplants, people were beginning to recognize it. And then there were some allopathic doctors, some integrative, it wasn't functional then, started asking me questions. And I was actually studied at the University of Arizona for a week as a lab rat. But how I came to it, and I'll make a very long story short, I said, you know what, if you cut your hand, whether you put antibiotics or antiseptic on it or whatever, it heals. So there has to be an intelligence in the body that the brain doesn't get at all. Because you can't think a cut healed. But the body knows. And that's when I came to the idea and coined it. I'm not going to take, but that's what I coined in 1991, that my body was remembering something, how to heal itself. And that's how it started.
Interesting. So just to be completely clear, then at this point, your brain was still somewhat discombobulated.
Totally, totally
Okay.
discombobulated.
Okay. And you started having memories experienced in the body.
Correct. And even back in the womb, even in the womb.
So way back.
Way back.
Okay, and this only happened, well, no, because I'm trying to understand the accident had a different impact than when you were 3 years old, understanding that you're connected to a much bigger universe.
Yes.
Right? But let's one thing at a time. I'm really specific for details. So with this accident, then how did it come? Because you weren't processing it with your brain in that sense, or how were you processing? How did you know, or how did you recognize? What was that about?
Well, the first reason that made me recognize it, but there were things that happened in the near death. I was, out of body. I was somewhere else, and I had wonderful experiences, just a conversation. But one of the things that I noticed in the body, again, the body is so smart. And I began to look back through and start researching. And I read books in quantum physics. Now, remember, my brain is still screwed up, and, because I smashed it so hard. But then I recognized that in one of my other near-death experiences in 1965, I smashed the same part of my head. It was my left brain. And I said, there has to be a connection. And my naturopath has my charts. I can email you one, and she uses it in her practice of the energetic connections that I discovered inside myself. That in these energetic connections, there had to be a consciousness going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because the minute the sperm hits the egg, I say we're in. So how does the nose know to be a nose? And how does the toe cells know to be a toe cell? Or otherwise we'd have a fingernail at the end of our nose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, there has to be something more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certainly not discounting my brain. I actually developed a methodology that I teach in 5 or 10 minutes to connect left brain and right brain.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. It absolutely works. And though my brain was out of place, I was actually studied at the University of Arizona for a week as a lab rat. And they came to the conclusion, it doesn't matter what they came to the conclusion, they were wonderful. I love them. It's Dr. Gary Schwartz's group. And they said, wow, your left brain and right brain are so connected. You're like a genius. And I started laughing and I go, yeah, my brain's out of place. How about that? There has to be something going on, because I was recommended to them by a Harvard doctor who was a friend of mine, who was the first doctor as an intern at Mayo here in Arizona that got what I said. He was like the first one that didn't say, no, that's stupid or that's stupid. He said, tell me more. Like, tell me more. And then I met this wonderful doctor that just got out of naturopathic college, and we've been friends that many years. And she is a naturopath. And we connected. And she would say, tell me more. And then I'd say, you tell me more too. And this collaboration started. We didn't set out to collaborate, but it happened. And the same with this doctor who has a practice in Columbus. And I've actually worked with over 500 of his patients over the phone.
Wow. Very interesting. So what did they think was wrong with was it the left lobe? Did they call it a concussion? Did they have a diagnosis, which we can talk about diagnosis as well.
So they were having a difficult time because I wasn't doing what in this allopathic hospital. Now, I'm not wronging allopathic doctors in any way. They were doing beautiful. And it was a teaching hospital that I was in Connecticut. But the interesting part is that I did not react the way they thought I was supposed to react, that I was responding. And they didn't know how. So this is one of the things I said, I can tell you how I got out of the car, or I can tell you how you think I got out of the car. And they responded, just tell us how we think you got out. I said, good. Now I know what to tell you. Got it?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, so you were in that sense working with the paradigm that they would understand.
Correct.
But to our audience, who's wide and all, all different, what would be the answer to that paradigm? What did you answer, and
Well,
what could you have answered?
so what I said was, I had this experience. You know, in the old paradigm, they say you go down a tunnel and you meet your relatives. And so there was a couple of them that sort of asked me something like that. But I said, no, if I'm going to go down a tunnel, those relatives better have a job, because that doesn't make any sense to me. What are they doing waiting for me? But I did have an experience, and I actually met 12 beings. And I called them the 12 wise guys. I was on the East Coast, so it sounded like I should call them the 12 wise guys. And it was the most amazing experience. And this was my learning, my takeaway from that experience. Not taken away from me, but giving me life. And we talk about unconditional love here. Well, it has conditions. I don't care what anybody says. Unconditional about conditions. This is not, I'm not judging it. But what I felt from them was unconditional acceptance. Mm-hmm. That it didn't matter what I said to them. I could have swore or done anything, but they did teach me something. And they said, you know, you're going to go back. And I go, are you crazy? And I said, are you nuts? What? This is my third one. You know, 3 times a charm. This is my third one. No. And they said, well, you actually signed a contract. I said, was it invisible ink? You're crazy. I'm not signing any contract. They said, no, you already did. So you elected to go back. And I said, you expect me to get into that body that's upside down the Connecticut River, that's going to have a lot of problems, and you expect me to do that? And I said, no, we don't expect you to do anything. It's your choice, dear. It's your choice. And so the next thing you know, I am in this car, and I bubbled up because the window was open, and I bubbled up to the surface, and I can't swim. And I cannot tell you how dirty the Connecticut River is back then. and I'm yelling as I bobbed to the surface, and I said, I can't swim. And this is actually the truth. I felt somebody lift me up. Now this place is called Old Saybrook, and this is the Dock and Dine. I made the Dock and Dine. So yachts are parked there. We're not talking about rowboats. We're talking about very wealthy yachts, you know, not rowboats. And I felt this lifting, and the next thing you know, this man grabs me, and I'm laying on this dock. And he said, you have to, you know, be quiet. And he said, the ambulance is on his way. He said, you've heard. I said, I'm sorry, I have to get up. I have to go home. And he said, where do you live? And I go, in Michigan. He goes, this is Connecticut. I said, I know. And I reached my hand up, and this finger went inside my head. It went right in, and it was slashed and smashed. And I saw all this watery blood. And I said, well, I have to get up. And he said, no, you can't. Well, so let's go forward, and then we'll go back again. Mm-hmm. But they told me that it was some woman who had lifted me up the dock. They have to remember, these are docks for yachts. It's not like you can lift somebody up.
Right.
And they gave me a name. And when I got back to Michigan, I wrote a thank you note, and it came back, and I still have it. No such person, no such address. And it was supposed to be in a boat or a yacht there. Yeah. And the interesting part, the people that owned this yacht, the police told me they never took it out. They just bought it to party on and have a good time. And that night, they took it out. Otherwise, I probably have blown up the harbor. A setup. A setup.
That's interesting. So yeah, that must have fundamentally changed how you see reality.
Like, I did.
Yeah.
It changed the idea of, was this real? Mm-hmm. Or is it a reality that someone told me I was supposed to have? Mm-hmm. So I had to walk very carefully. And after I was there a week, I said, you know what, I'm going to go home now. And they said, well, we're not ready to check you out. I said, don't worry. I've already called a cab. They're going to pick me up and drive me to Hartford, Connecticut. It was, an hour and a half away or whatever. And they said, well, we're going to give you all these drugs. And I said, well, thank you. That's very kind of you, but I don't want them. But they said, well, we're going to take you anyway. And so I checked myself out of the hospital, called a cab, got, to the airline, which was Northwest at the time. And they picked me up and I came home. But when I got home, it was really a paradigm and the pain really set in. Really, really, really. Because, when we have accidents or shock, we're kind of euphoric for a while.
Totally. Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for that shock that it lasted about a week and a half. But now I'm back in Michigan. And when that wore off, I thought, oh my, what am I going to do? But I'm so grateful. I wouldn't change one part of the scenario. Not a one.
Wow. I mean, it led to a whole other, to everything.
To everything. And that's why I say that these are opportunities. So in 97, I arrived in in Scottsdale, Arizona, really, with my last $50 and didn't know anybody. And people said, how could you do that? I said, well, I developed this motto called no matter what. And so I looked at it as an opportunity. Just like I look at this thing that we've been locked in our homes because of COVID. And so because of that, I've taken this opportunity to do other things.
Right.
Because, I did see, clients, but mostly over the phone. But I took some of the off times to start a new book, collaborate on a book with some lady I met that I was at a conference last year that I wasn't supposed to be there, and neither was she. And we sat next to each other. So I hear ding, 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 ding. And so we're collaborating on a book. Plus I'm writing one and I'm developing some courses online. So I call this the in-between times. We're going from the old world into a new world. And so I call this the in-between time. And when we stay non-emotional, as a non-emotional observer, we can see the opportunities in it.
Right.
Because the unknown is where we create.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. So, yeah, I mean, that's a powerful message for people who, it's interesting. I was discussing this with my family and with, other doctors and people in general. And it's unbelievable the scope of experience that people are having and choosing to have, right? And it's like there's fear on both spectrums, on both, as if there's only two spectrums, but let me rephrase that. There's the fear of the virus, of course, and there's the fear of the solutions and the implications that come with the solution for the virus, right? And if you listen to podcasts or to so many people, as far as the emotion that is coming through outside of the information, right? Just the emotion, it's fear.
Totally. We are so on the same page. Totally.
Yeah, and it's gone. Yeah.
And how I mean to interrupt you, but how I define fear is not false evidence. I define fear as lack of information, but it has to be information that resonates. So so when people say, Sherry, aren't you afraid of the unknown? I said, well, I'm more afraid of some of the knowns. I'll take the unknown because it says, I'm not getting religious, but in the beginning there was nothing and then something happened. You created it. So I'm looking at this is an opportunity to create in the unknown, and you can make it very specific for yourself or to assist other people or whatever it is. And that's the part I'm loving so much. Or the fact is, I get to meet you today. That is because 3 weeks ago, you were unknown to me. So in this unknown and this connection of LinkedIn or whatever it is, it becomes known. And so when people observe, I call it neo, non-emotional observe, when you begin to observe things, you will see the magnificence of the ability of humans to create.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I totally agree. And creating is like how, or maybe this is part of what you teach. I don't know. So I'm asking. So if people are finding themselves in fear of the unknown, which is kind of a precept that it doesn't quite make sense. Like, but how do you help them come out of that? What do you feel are the ingredients of that, or how do you look at that?
Well, first, because our body has memorized everything. So there's a difference between cellular memorization,
Mm-hmm.
which most of the allopathic doctors haven't got to that. And this is not a judgment. And then there's cellular memory. So the memory is clear and pure and active. But the memorization could be as simple as this. Um, this is not what our family does, or this is what our family gets. And you can tell that to a child whose brain isn't developed till they're 25 as a computer brain, and so they internalize it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've actually heard people say, well, our family could get this flu. Why would you say that?
Right.
I mean, that couldn't even be part. That's why I teach wordology is your biology. That, and I have Sherryisms. So one of my favorite Sherryisms, I use it every day. I kid you not. When I get up, I say, what I say makes my day. And what I say can make or break somebody else's day, because language has power.
Mm.
And and
Absolutely.
and I know as a little girl, I was really little in a history class or what they were teaching, and the teacher said Columbus discovered America. So this is me. I'm always asking questions. So I raised my little hand and I said, well, if Columbus discovered America, how come there were people living here? But the teacher gave me the most brilliant answer. He said, memorize it and pass the test. And this little light bulb went on. Well, he memorized that to teach me. But he gave me a gift. And that was before Wikipedia and Google. It became the library. Not as a nerd, but just I
Mhm.
started going to the public library, not the school library, looking for answers.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, yeah. So that it's not, I mean, it's like we tend to put forward the subconscious, right? What we were told, or what we've made a habit of
Yes.
of thinking, of being, of, communicating, right? So in your methodology, because with what I do, and that's also one of the interests I have, I teach a pain elimination methodology, but it doesn't just remove pain. It also allows memory in the body to come up, which allows for healing to take place.
Yes.
And people recognize it afterwards, but it's not forced out of them. It's all about the timing and the touch, and this methodology, which is pretty unique. Now, when I was reading a little more about your history and all that, it sounds like that is what you do, but you do it which way? How do you bring this out?
Well, when someone fills out an intake sheet, like they would for you, and they put down, ADD, depression, anxiety, like down to XYZ, because of where they are in the consciousness of it or the belief system of it, when they are filling out that box gives me the clue of what is going on in that area of the body. So if it's in the heart area, or if it's in the throat, and energetically the throat is connected to the feet, and the shoulders are connected to the knees, and the jaws are connected to the hips. And I discovered that working with pregnant women years ago. And so what I ask them is, you have pain, tell me, what does the pain look like? And they'll say, no, it's pain. No, what does it look like to you? And you use your words. Is it thick or dark or
Mhm.
icky, or, like your description? And then they will tell me, well, it looks really hard. It looks hard. And that's in that area of the body of that memorization. And so I say, oh, you know what we're going to do? So the subconscious, the body is like a house, but the subconscious is the room. It could be the closet or the garage. We know it's there, and we know we're going to clean it out eventually. But where I work is in the unconscious, when it got programmed in
Mm-hmm.
to the body. And then here's a perfect example. There was a woman who came to me, and she was afraid of needles. And she spent years and years in therapy and drugs, shock treatments, and she was just beside herself. And they finally just said, you know, you have false memories or you're nuts, really. And a friend of hers recommended. Within 10 minutes, we were able to get to the core of why she was afraid of needles. 50 years ago, how did they do something? They used knitting needles to abort babies. And her mother used knitting needles. That was from the womb. And when she got that, just all the pain went away.
Mm-hmm.
And so she got facts now, even though it was difficult. And she told me she called her mother, which they never really had a good relationship. But she said, I'm not judging you or blaming you. But could you tell me, did this happen? And her mother broke down and she said, yes, that's what I tried to do, to abort you with knitting needles. That is how brilliant it is. The minute the sperm hits the egg, we're in. And that was a memorization, not the pure memory of her. And so for all these years, they just thought that she had some kind of a twitch or a weird thing.
So her body, so her mind had the fear of needles,
Mhm.
but her body also manifested other symptoms, of which
Yes,
the entire root of it was the memorization.
yes. And if you look, the first and second chakra, that is really the root of it. And that's where she was carried for 9 months.
Right.
And her mother had tried several times, but she was intent on living.
Mm-hmm.
But it created a false memory in some ways. It wasn't false what happened, but they could not analyze it in just the left computer brain. They
Right.
weren't taking into consideration the whole body in the whole, I call it affect, effect, and infect.
Oh, please expand on that.
Oh, good. So we can affect each other and we can affect ourselves. That's the affect. Then we can have going out from that effect our effect on other people.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we have been a victim of whatever it is, and that had that effect on us. And so we might in our computer brain do a resistance. And so we will push people away that might like to love us or be with us or support us, but because we don't feel we deserve it. So then all of that affect and effect becomes the infect. So it could be cancer, eating yourself up alive, or depression, deepest disappointment, or anxiety, unrealistic expectations. So it's not these short examples doesn't mean I'm discounting it, but that's what I saw at the core.
Mm-hmm. 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 So, so the process brings to consciousness the information,
Yes.
and then what is your understanding? Because I mean, so far it's very, very interesting. Completely another door into healing, but there's a million doors into healing. But how? So it becomes information. How do you see that the information allows for the healing?
Because they're comprehending. See, knowing and understanding is not enough, but they comprehend now what happened, which changes their behavior and their actions. So I teach profiles, behaviors, and roles. And so they come out of being a victim, but
Right.
they didn't even know they were a victim. But then they would attract these profiles that would victimize them, whether it was a spouse or a boss or a friend, sort of a frenemy, and they can begin to see their own particular participation. And as Neo, because I create a space for them to go into that place and they describe it. And once they get into that space, and it's not closed or anything, I will ask them, how old are you in that space you just created? And this lady said, I'm in the womb. Or someone will say, I was 6, and they told me that I wasn't smart as my brother or my sister. Or I was an accident. So if you tell someone they're an accident, because there aren't any, they're not worthy, they have no value, they have no worth, and then they act it out. So that's the affect of it. Then the effect is, get away from me, or you can, stand up and abuse me. I'm used to it. That's part of it. This is all unconscious and unconscious. And then the infect is, it could be cancer. It could be IBS myself. It could be, shoulder issues. It could be dislocation. It could be defined as, you know what, you're just nuts. And take this pill and hide it away. And that isn't it at all.
Right. So how do you, how does a person want or realize that they may be driven by something? Like I'll just, as an example for me, if you have a physical manifestation, for example, I know that it comes from somewhere.
Yes, the emotionality, the emotional attachment. I have a couple pictures. Could I show those to you?
Sure. I think this works. Let's try that.
Or not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just going to give you we've changed all these things. So share screen so you can share it.
But I don't have them to share. I can just hold them up. Is it okay?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
These are actually photographs. So here's a gal. I know her sister is one of my besties. And this lady came. Can you see that? Is that too much light?
No, it's the reflection of the
big light?
The plastic on top of it, I think.
Okay, let me take out one of these. Can you see that now?
Yes.
See that leg?
Yeah.
You know what that is? That's
looks like
green.
Yeah.
And diabetes, because life was sour. And both sisters process things differently. So in a 4-hour session, getting to the root of this on her female side, this is what happened to her leg.
Wow. Only an hour?
4.
4 hours later. Oh my goodness gracious.
And then here's another one. This is a gal. I have to kind of hide her part of her face, but this is cancer. This is cancer. But see, I'm really not healing. What I'm doing is assisting them to address some issues. So I'll hold her eyes. So here,
the issues that they need. Yes.
See that? Yeah. That's cancer. That's not a goiter. That's cancer. And so she came and she was here 4 days with me, and I will give you. So this is the end of 4 days, and then she went home and was able to get the rest of it cut out.
Wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
There's actually a chin. See that?
Yeah. Do again before, because.
Oh, sure. I'll do the before. Yeah. So this, it's pretty. Here, I'll give you one that's even a better one. And this is a better one. Look at this.
Put it more. It's there you go. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah.
And then this was the after for 4 days with me.
Okay, and now move that over so we see the full. Okay, so it's not it's the shot from the left side where it's the biggest part that you're showing.
Yeah, and that was the left part. And so here's another gal, and this is I think it can show this to you, but she actually has it on a sheet, and she was very emotional, and they couldn't figure it out. So I don't know if we can see these. See her eyes?
Yeah.
This is 1 hour later.
Okay.
And this was weeks of going, and it was a physician, and this is what she looks like now.
Wow.
And I have permission, to use hers.
Yes.
But there is physically a change in the structure within the cells of this intelligence that begins to remember what a clear cell or group of cells, fascia, molecules, particles begin to look like. when they get to that emotional core of it, and people will create the disease in their body from these emotional components.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it fascinating because honestly, in my idea, it wasn't anything I had set out to do.
No, clear. Yeah, which was actually kind of where I started with the beginning of the podcast. How did you become, part of the healing field? And it's like it's very different, right? I mean, you first recognize that you had more information that was not normal in the sense that usual to be shared, right? And then you had, but that wasn't enough to shift it. It was actually your own, you know, transcending experience that really got you to realize that there's so much more. It's interesting, like the path for everyone is so unique, right? It's like, it's not it's not an application.
No, it's not. And you know what? And because I teach wordology, I make up words all the time. But one of the things that I never cared for, this is not a judgment, I never liked the word oneness. The reason I didn't like oneness is because they said we're all the same. And I kept looking around and everybody was unique. So I came up with the term allness. So we are all connected in our own unique way. And I have friends all different ages and stages. I have all my life. And I thought everybody's so unique, but we're connected in like this allness of it. And then that's how I got allness and connectedness through our heartness, which is the essence of all that. So I'm always making up words.
Okay, no, makes sense. Well, that's why I found that there are words missing, absolutely, because of the way that we see the world, or if you're shifting how you see things, you realize that there's missing words. Even in the most simple thing, I was thinking diagnosis, like it's a strange word, right? But it makes sense because the belief behind that diagnosis is going to be the prognosis,
Yes.
which goes with it. And then I thought, well, this is a hard word to use. And as a naturopathic physician, we're still, trained to do that. And I thought, I'm going to make up the word healthnosis.
I love it. See, that's what, and I don't like the word diet because the first three
Exactly.
letters are diet. Well, that goes, are you on a diet? No, I'm not on a diet. I don't. And this is, like the realize, I call this realize with real eyes.
Right, exactly.
Isn't that funny? Are you realizing with real eyes? We have.
I'm gonna throw another one with realize, yeah. And it's like 2020, is about clear vision.
Yes. And look where we are in 2020.
Well, we don't know yet. Yeah, we don't know where we are, right? And that's the thing, is that how much of what we experience and what we, how much, it's how much do we read, get information, look at different information, though, I think you probably have noticed a lot of things disappear somehow, but, like part of it is we need to educate. And at the same time, we've got to really check what's happening inside us.
Yes.
Because we don't want to be in fear, whether, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, or, I mean, so many people are labeled that now. It's quite shocking. I was in a group of physicians and they're being labeled, and it's like, what on earth, it's interesting, but, oops. Oh.
Hey.
Oh, 1 second. Can I, in a moment, if you get off. Yep. Okay, I guess I should figure out how to lock this. I'm going to cut it there.
Okay.
Before she comes on, and we'll just do a wrap up. Okay. So, yeah. So what I was saying is, yeah, there's a combination of receiving information from the sources that one can, and then searching every source we can, and the checking in to ourselves on how are we feeling when we're listening to this, and I thought maybe you might have one more word to say on that, since that's really your...
So feeling is in the heart. And in the brain, we thinky, which isn't wrong. We're only using half of the brain. But when we feel it, and I say, I feel, so I cannot thinky. So when I'm feeling, I know I'm present. I know I'm in the moment. But if I get into my head, and I teach business people this, that if you get ahead of yourself, you just put your head somewhere else that hasn't happened. So in the moment is, I say, knowing at my deepest knowing, I can't change the past. It's 1 second ago. But I can change my future, and it's 1 second from now, by not dragging the past forward where it doesn't serve me, and keeping what does and expanding upon it. And that's what I teach the tools. So the Anshara method has very specific outlined tools that are practical, because emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, because what's the cost to us? Those 5 words mean the same thing. We're either in a belief system, BS, or we begin to conscious, and then it connects.
Wow. I'm going to leave those as the final words, and there'll be a link so people can get in touch with you as well. But it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show.
And I'm so grateful, and we will send it out everywhere when we get the link. Thank you for our blessing, and I'd like to keep in touch, because you got it. And you are one of those paradigm shifters.
Well, and we'll find out why.
Yes, we'll find out. And I'm so grateful to know you. And I'm grateful for LinkedIn that we linked.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.